The 90s were the golden decade of 2D platform games that marked an entire generation of players. If you grew up in that era, you certainly remember the unique feeling of turning on the Super Nintendo, Mega Drive, or even the good old Master System and venturing into colorful worlds, full of challenges and unforgettable soundtracks. The 90s were the creative peak of two-dimensional platform games. It was in this decade that we saw the birth of some of the most iconic franchises in video game history, with graphics that pushed consoles to their limit, gameplay refined to the extreme, and level design that still serves as a reference for developers around the world today. Prepare for a nostalgic journey through the 10 best 2D platform games of this legendary decade. Titles that defined not just a genre, but an entire gamer culture that endures to this day. I'm Matthew, and we're already starting the list with Super Mario World, the perfect definition of how a platform game should be made. When you pick up the controller for the first time, you immediately realize you're facing something special. The controls are so responsive and precise that Mario feels like an extension of your fingers. The sensation of running, jumping, and pulling off those perfect slides never gets old. And that's what separates the great games from the mediocre ones. What impresses me most is how Nintendo managed to create a world that feels alive and full of secrets. Each stage has multiple paths, secret exits, and hidden power-ups that reward the player's curiosity. The world map isn't just a pretty menu, it's a constant invitation to explore, discover that secret stage you haven't found yet, or try an alternative path that might lead to completely new worlds. This sense of discovery is addictive. Yoshi was the most brilliant addition the series has ever had. It's not just a power-up, it's practically its own character with unique abilities that completely transform the gameplay. Riding the green, blue, yellow, or red Yoshi offers totally different experiences, and the mechanic of swallowing enemies to gain powers never stopped being satisfying. The relationship between Mario and Yoshi has a perfect chemistry that few games have managed to replicate. Technically, Super Mario World was a show of strength for the Super Nintendo. The graphics were colorful and detailed without ever cluttering the screen. Koji Kondo's soundtrack is one of the best ever composed for video games, and the sound effects are so iconic that we instantly recognize them even today. The game runs flawlessly, with no slowdown or bugs, showing the level of polish that only Nintendo knew how to deliver at the time.
Não vou arriscar pegar moeda, não. Porque morrer é muito fácil.
I remember the first time I played Sonic the Hedgehog 2, it was an almost sensory experience. The speed already existed in the first game, but here it seemed to have a different purpose. It wasn't just about running fast, it was about finding a state of flow. The title screen, with the iconic music and the image of Sonic and Tails, already set a tone of adventure and companionship. The introduction of Emerald Hill Zone was the game's declaration of intent. A vast and colorful playground designed for you to test the limits of the character's physics and discover how fast you could truly go. What solidifies Sonic 2 from a technical standpoint is the multifaceted level design. Stages like Chemical Plant Zone are a perfect example of this. There was always a higher path, faster and riskier, that rewarded players with sharp reflexes and good control mastery. And there was the lower path, usually slower, with more enemies and sometimes water traps. This design philosophy gave the game immense replayability. You didn't just complete Sonic 2, you mastered it, learning the ideal routes and secret shortcuts to optimize your time. The addition of the spin dash was, mechanically, one of the most significant changes. In the first game, gaining speed required a running stretch. Here you could charge up and explode into speed at any moment. This completely changed the game's pace, making it more dynamic and giving the player more proactive control over momentum. The inclusion of Tails, whether as an AI-controlled partner or for a second player, added a layer of fun chaos to the experience, even if the camera had difficulty keeping up with both. My first foray into Super Metroid was one of pure disorientation, and that's a compliment. The game starts with an intense action scene and then abandons you on the planet Zebes with almost no instructions. This sense of isolation is the central pillar of the experience. There is no narrator, no arrows pointing the way. It's just you, Samus Aran, in a hostile labyrinthine environment. The atmosphere is built not only by the dark visuals, but by the oppressive silence that is broken only by the sounds of alien fauna or the echo of your own footsteps. The genius of Super Metroid lies in its world design. Zebes is not a collection of stages, but an interconnected ecosystem. Areas that were previously inaccessible become explorable as you acquire new equipment. The game teaches you its rules organically. You see a green door and can't open it. Hours later, you find the super missile and the connection is instantaneous. This cycle of finding an obstacle, acquiring the right tool, and returning to overcome it is incredibly rewarding and became the foundation for an entire genre. Samus's control mechanics are remarkably precise. She has a weight and inertia that makes her believable within that world. The ability to shoot in 8 directions, the physics of the space jump, the timing of the wall jump. All of this gives the player an arsenal of movements that evolves along with the character. Every new upgrade is not just a key to a new area, but a fundamental expansion of how you interact and move through the environment. The audio-visual aspect is a lesson in how to use technology to create a specific mood. The SNES was known for its colorful games, but Super Metroid uses its palette to create dark, damp, and claustrophobic environments. Mega Man X was a necessary reinvention, executed to perfection. I came from the classic NES series, which was excellent but starting to show signs of stagnation. The opening scene of X on the highway was a shock. The speed, the fluidity of the character, the rock-infused music. Everything signaled that this was something new. It was Mega Man, but with a different, more agile and mature attitude. The introduction of the wall jump and the dash were not just new abilities. They redefined the way the game was played. The core gameplay was transformed by this new mobility. The dash allowed you to cross large gaps, dodge attacks with precision, and maintain a much faster combat rhythm. Combined with the wall jump, this opened up the level design vertically. Levels were no longer just left-to-right corridors. They were complex spaces that encouraged exploration and the creative use of your movement abilities. Finding Dr. Light's capsules, heart tanks, and sub-tanks became a platforming and puzzle metagame. The structure of choosing the boss order was maintained, but with an extra layer of strategy. Defeating one Maverick affected another's stage. Beating Chill Penguin would freeze the lava in Flame Mammoth stage, for example. This created a logical order, and encouraged the player to think about which path would be most efficient. Additionally, the boss weakness system was complemented by obtaining armor pieces, which offered permanent upgrades and a feeling of continuous progression. Mega Man X succeeded in evolving a classic formula without disrespecting its legacy. It introduced new mechanics that became indispensable and added layers of depth to both the gameplay and the narrative, which was a bit darker. The game set a new standard for action platformers, proving it was possible to be fast, technical, and rewarding all at once.
Yeah, I cannot reach them. Rise me up, boy! Not working.
Super Castlevania 4 holds a prominent place for how it rethought the series' foundation on the 16-bit. The true innovation here wasn't just in the graphics, which, let's be honest, were impressive for the time, with great sprites and dense backgrounds, but in the gameplay. The whip control in 8 directions was a monumental change. For the first time, the whip wasn't just a frontal attack weapon. It was a tool for defense, range, and even mobility, allowing the player to swing across certain points. This new freedom of attack, however, altered the game's pace. While previous titles demanded precision and anticipation due to Simon's more rigid movement, 4 allowed for more dynamic combat. This doesn't mean the game is easy. It simply shifted the focus of the challenge, which became more about managing enemy range and rhythm, taking advantage of the whip's versatility. The game's level design is an excellent case study on how to use the SNES's resources. The stages weren't just straight lines. Sprite manipulation and the famous Mode 7 were applied creatively. Think of the room that rotates or the corridor that twists. These visual tricks weren't just showmanship. They informed the stage design, creating unstable and disorienting platforms that required quick player adaptation. Contra 3 is the definition of controlled chaos and pure adrenaline on the 16-bit. What it did was take the series' intense action formula and enhance it with the power of the SNES. Technically, the game's frame rate is notable, keeping the action fluid even with dozens of enemy sprites and bullets on screen, a feat for the time. The title's primary innovation was the introduction of the ability to shoot while moving and the dynamic weapon swapping. The player no longer needed to stand still to shoot diagonally, which injected crucial agility into the gameplay. This fluidity is what separates Contra 3 from its predecessors. The level design is relentless and creative, with intelligent use of backgrounds and foregrounds to provide depth. The top-down perspective stages are a technical example of how Mode 7 was used. In these stages, the screen rotates as the player moves, which wasn't just a visual effect. It created new combat dynamics, forcing the player to manually aim at the target, completely altering the aiming challenge. The game is extremely short, but its difficulty curve is designed for replay and mastery. The high difficulty was a characteristic of the era, and Contra 3 embraced it, demanding quick reflexes and memorization of boss attack patterns. Contra 3 is a technical peak of action and platforming. Its game speed, the clever handling of the SNES's graphical resources, especially Mode 7 in the top-down stages, and improvements in character control solidified it as a landmark in the 2D run and gun genre, setting a standard for action intensity. The impact of Donkey Kong Country was, first and foremost, visual. Rareware used a technique called 3D pre-rendering to create the sprites and backgrounds from three-dimensional models, resulting in graphics that looked decades ahead of other SNES games. This technical decision gave the game a unique visual identity and influenced the aesthetics of many subsequent games. On the gameplay front, the introduction of the two-character system, Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong, was a highlight. This allowed for the exploration of platforming mechanics based on differences in weight and agility. Donkey was slower and stronger, Diddy faster and lighter, and switching between them was central to solving certain challenges. The level design is notably focused on rhythm and exploration. The mine stages and those involving animals, like Rambi and Engward, are not just thematic stages, they are sets of platforming rules that change drastically. The challenge is not in complex combat, but in mastering the timing of jumps and avoiding traps, with an emphasis on discovering bonus levels. Despite the innovative graphics, there is a valid discussion about character control. Donkey Kong's inertia, for example, is greater than Mario's, requiring a period of adaptation and different jumping precision. This added weight to the movement gives the game a more physical feel, but can be perceived as less responsive compared to the surgical precision of other platform titles. In the end, Donkey Kong Country represents an undeniable visual technical leap for the SNES, redefining what 2D graphics could be. Its gameplay is based on a character dynamic duo and level design focused on secrets and rhythm, delivering a platforming experience that values both exploration and execution. Super Mario All-Stars arrived in 1993 as the definitive compilation every Mario fan was waiting for, bringing together 4 absolute NES classics in completely remastered versions for the SNES. Nintendo took Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, Super Mario Bros. 2, and Super Mario Bros. 3, and rebuilt them from scratch with 16-bit graphics that maintained the essence of the originals while leveraging all the visual power of the Super Nintendo. The most exciting thing was finally having access to the legendary Lost Levels outside of Japan, a game that had become almost mythical for its extreme difficulty and regional exclusivity. The updated graphics are simply stunning, transforming the classic 8-bit sprites into detailed works of art that completely respect the original design. The addition of parallax scrolling creates a sense of depth that the original games could never achieve, especially visible in the backgrounds of Super Mario Bros. 3. Seeing Mario and Luigi with more fluid animations, more vibrant colors, and details you had never noticed before is a powerful nostalgic experience. Nintendo clearly invested time and care in every sprite, every animation, every visual element. The save function was an absolute revolution for those who had suffered with passwords or had to play everything at once in the originals. You could finally pause your journey in any world and resume exactly where you left off, transforming these games from stressful marathons into more relaxed and accessible experiences. This completely changed the way you could approach the Lost Levels, especially, which ceased to be a masochistic ordeal to become a gradual and manageable challenge. The refinement of the mechanics shows how much Nintendo learned about game design in the transition from the NES to the SNES. Yoshi's Island arrived in 1995 as one of the last great surprises of the SNES. And what a surprise it was. Nintendo took a completely different visual direction from anything it had done before, creating an artistic style that literally looked like a coloring book coming to life. The Nintendo ED developers did something revolutionary. They hand-drew many assets, scanned the illustrations, and then digitized them pixel by pixel for the SNES hardware. The result is a unique aesthetic that combines the handcrafted charm of hand-drawn pictures with cutting-edge technological effects that only the Super FX2 chip could provide. The use of the Super FX2 is absolutely masterful and fully integrated into the game's organic look. Unlike Star Fox, which blasted polygons in your face, Yoshi's Island uses 3D elements subtly but impactfully. Walls that fall, barrels that roll, and depth effects that do not conflict with the hand-drawn aesthetic. The famous Touch Fuzzy Get Dizzy level uses Mode 7 to create psychedelic effects that completely distort your visual perception, making the world undulate and spin in an hallucinating way. It's a creative use of technology that goes far beyond visual spectacle. It directly affects the gameplay. The Baby Mario transformation mechanic is brilliant in terms of both gameplay and narrative. When Yoshi takes damage, Mario flies out in a bubble, crying desperately, creating a unique emotional urgency in platform games. You're not just losing a life, you're failing to protect a defenseless baby. This inversion of the traditional Mario formula, where he is now the vulnerable one who needs to be protected, creates a completely new dynamic that is simultaneously funny and tense. The countdown timer until Mario is captured adds a constant pressure that keeps you constantly alert. Sonic the Hedgehog was Sega's direct answer to Mario's dominance, and its design is totally focused on speed. What makes it a landmark is its software engineering. The game engine was built to process high-speed graphics without noticeable slowdown, which was crucial to sustaining the feeling of momentum and the Hedgehog's physics. Sonic's physics are the most defining technical element. The character isn't just fast. His movement is dictated by a system of inertia and acceleration. This means the player needs to understand the ramp angle and the moment of the run to maintain maximum speed. The platforming challenge shifts from precise jumps to momentum management. The level design reflects this priority on speed. The stages are built with multiple routes, vertical and horizontal. These routes are not just for exploration, but a reward system. The upper routes generally allow the player to maintain speed and advance faster, while the lower ones are slower and more dangerous, requiring re-acceleration. Sonic the Hedgehog is a feat of optimization on the Mega Drive. Its game engine allowed for a speed and momentum that differentiated it from competitors. The game's success lies in integrating this acceleration physics into its multi-route level design, creating a platforming alternative that values both quick reaction and understanding of the character's inertia. Well, that was my list. Do you agree? Tell me in the comments. I'll be signing off now, God bless, and until next time.